Hello, this is my review of the best Salesforce PSA tools. PSA standing for Professional Services Automation. That would be project management tools for firms that do projects for clients, usually by the hour. So that would be a consulting firm, an IT development firm, architectural firm, accounting firm, those types of things. So Salesforce offers a slew of PSA tools. That's because it makes sense for the firm, the professional services firm, to use Salesforce for their sales and lead generation, and then integrate that with a project management tool. So when they sell the project, it automatically creates a standard project that they can plan, estimate, bid, etc., straight from Salesforce. So the four that I believe are the best are Certinia, Cantata SX, Mission Control, and Precursive PSA. Now, I evaluate all the 10 standard project management processes, and the three that are most important to a professional services firm are cost management, which I have highlighted here, resource management, and schedule management. And mission control, it gets the highest scores under cost management. Cantata gets the highest scores under resource and schedule management. So Cantata is the overall winner, with mission control a second. And there may be some situations where you actually would like to go Certinia, and I'll get into that later. So best is obviously subjective. So I'm going to dive into the details of each of the three main processes. We're going to start with cost management. And I'm going to touch on what are the key differentiators that where the functionality varies between these four tools. And so you can make your own decision as to which of these differentiators are important to you and which aren't. And I'm just going to run down this list so you understand what each of these differentiators represent. Try to make it as interesting as possible if I can. So first one is sum the planned costs to a release. So which tools actually allow you, if you're going to have multiple releases in the project, which tool allows you to sum those costs by release. Then also sum those same costs up to a program. So if you're actually running a program for your client, multiple projects rolled together, can you roll all those costs up to the program level? Define a tax rate. So that's for invoicing. So can you automatically apply the appropriate tax rate to the invoice? Can you actually invoice customers? And Certinia has a gap here, but that's because their project management module doesn't have that capability. But you can buy a separate module at an additional cost within Certinia's suite of products to do the invoicing. Then, does it support daily or weekly rates? All of them support hourly rates. But surprisingly, Cantata does not support a daily or weekly rate, which is becoming much more popular for professional services firms. For example, I usually try to charge at a weekly rate. Therefore, my budget is fairly fixed. It doesn't go up and down if I have to work extra hours during the week, etc. Overtime rates. Again, Cantata does not support overtime rates, which are pretty common, especially in IT development firms. They will charge standard rate up to 40 hours a week for the developer. If the customer's got a rush job or they're behind, they will charge an additional overtime rate for the developer's time. And then whether they support different revenue recognition methods. So is this a time and material invoice? How are we recognizing the revenue against the projects? And mission control is very limited in that capacity. Okay, so what are the key differentiators for resource management? Obviously, resource management being very important for a professional services firm because your people's time is the money, how you invoice. So the first one here is percentage allocation of resources to a project. So can you vary at a high level and just say, Bob is going to be allocated to this project 50% of his time or 100% of his time? And all those tools can do that except mission control, which I'll get into a little bit later. But mission control only does its planning at the task level, which once you get a full project plan done and things shouldn't be an issue. But early on, when you're trying to bid or do high-level planning, that is going to cause some problems. So then, can you control access by individual projects? So you're running multiple projects for multiple clients all in the same app. Can you control who in your firm can see which project, which projects can they edit versus which projects can they view, which project can't they even view. And can you do that at an individual project by project level? And only Cantata and Precursive support that. So then project-specific access to financial data. So the same thing. A lot of times you'd like everybody to be able to see all the tasks and the metadata related to the project, but you don't want them to be able to see all the financial data as to, what's the cost basis for each developer? What are you paying contractors? So can you give them access to the project, but block them from seeing financial data? And again, Cantata is the only one that allows that. Can you automatically assign an available resource? So if a resources request is generated for a certain skill set, will the system automatically assign the right resource, right person with the right skill set available during that time period? And Cantata, all but Mission Control support that, have functionality similar to that. So can you publish resource openings for people to reply to? So this was, again, you have a project manager has a resource opening. Hey, I need an Apex developer for this period of time. Posts it onto an internal bulletin board where all your developers, knowing their schedule, knowing their availability, they can actually apply to that open position. So it helps support the resource manager in trying to fill openings. And then the last one is differentiate in resource management between soft and confirmed allocations in a resource view. So all these apps have a grid view which shows resources down the first column in rows, and then over weeks or months or time periods, what percentage are they allocated, assigned to projects. Now, the important thing here is you could allocate a resource to a project that hasn't started yet, and that would be a soft allocation. Or you have a resource who's already working in the middle of a project, working on it, that would be confirmed allocation. It's really helpful to the resource manager to see which of these allocations are soft versus confirmed, so they know where they have flexibility to move resources around. You can't move a confirmed resource, but if they're soft, confirmed, you haven't even communicated that to the customer yet, you could actually move them around to make the assignments more efficient if possible. All right, schedule management differentiators. So this is a much longer list, so I'll try to make it as quick as I can for you. So the first is unlimited task levels. That has to do with work breakdown structure in the Gantt chart. How many levels of tasks, summary tasks, task, subtask, etc. can I make? And mission control is limited there. I forget exactly how many it is. I think it's around 3 levels, which would drive me insane as a project manager. I want that flexibility to do that breakdown the way I want to do it. I don't have to be limited to how many levels I can create. Calculate critical path. That's the critical path. If a task on the critical path, if it slips, it will slip the finish date of the entire project. And that's very useful for a project manager to know which task does it need to focus on. Does it sync with the Salesforce task? So it's in Salesforce. Salesforce also has its own task object, and that's usually on the user's homepage. So they open up Salesforce in the morning, they see all their tasks assigned for them for today. Which of these tools actually take the tasks identified in their schedule in the app, replicate them over onto the Salesforce tasks, so that a user who's not intimately involved in the project, may be assigned 1 or 2 tasks, will see those tasks assigned to them in their Salesforce homepage. They don't need to go open up the app to see what tasks are assigned to them. They don't need to go to multiple locations to get their tasks. I think that's a really important type of feature. Can you sync tasks to external calendars, right? So can you also post those tasks to Outlook or Google Calendar? Support all dependency types. So when you have a task, you may have dependencies, right? This task can't start till the task before it finishes. Well, there's 4 dependency types. There's a finish start, a start start, a finish finish. What did I leave out? There's a 4th one. But you get my point. Is which of these support all those different types of dependencies? That's only Certinia and Cantata do that. List inter-project dependencies. So you may have two projects, especially in a program. Project B cannot start its testing until project A upgrades another piece of software it's dependent upon. Can you actually document those, track those going forward? All right, so now we're getting to Agile. So if you are using Agile, you have user stories. Can you rank those user stories within a project backlog, which is the product owner's responsibility to rank them from most important at top to least important at the bottom, so developers know what order to be working them. And then, does it actually have, if you're doing Agile, does it have a Kanban board? And surprisingly, Certinia is missing a Kanban board. And then, can you assign checklists to tasks? So this is useful, so you can actually create a task and then create a checklist within that task. So, the task is X, and then to complete the task, you need to do A, B, C, D, E, and F in that order. That's very useful because that makes your project plans much simpler. You can do the project planning at the deliverable level, a task for each deliverable, and then you can lay out the details within the checklist. Makes your project plan a lot cleaner. Update task assignments on a project template. So in most cases, like I said, professional service firms, they sell a project type. It's a standard project type. So they will have a standard project template set up for that. And for each of the tasks, instead of assigning a specific individual, they will assign a role to each task. So this is the responsibility of the project manager. This is the responsibility of the developer, et cetera, et cetera. Now you take that project template, you create a project. Now you need to go through and assign the actual person who's going to be the project manager, the actual person who's going to be the developer. Well, do you want to go down through that project, 200 lines of that project, doing that one by one? Or do you want to be able to just say, okay, the project manager on this project is Abe, assign Abe all the tasks assigned to the project manager in one fell swoop. You want to hide internal tasks from clients. So in a lot of these cases, you want to share these tasks, and your client may actually have some tasks on the project plan. You want to share these with your client. They are a user on the app. Can you send them the task in an email or on a portal of some sort, and they can see it, they can complete it and mark it as completed, and do all that without having a license to the app. So you want that capability, but then there are certain tasks you don't want the client to see. So can you give the client access to the overall project plan, but can you mark sensitive tasks, internal tasks, so that the client can't see them? And then I just touched on this. Can you assign tasks to external team members, clients, contractors who you don't want to buy a license for the app? Can you send them a task? They see it, they complete it, they mark it as done, it updates the project plan. As for pricing, all 4 apps are pretty close on pricing. Except for Cantata is $45 per user per month. The other 3 are basically $40, Mission Control being $39 cheaper. Unfortunately, Certinia and Cantata do not publicize the minimum license required, so I can't give you a minimum cost per year. Mission Control comes in at just over $2,000 minimum with 5 licenses. And Recursive, which had the lowest overall functionality scores, comes in at $9,600 a year with a minimum of 20 licenses. So if you need pricing for Cantata or Certinia, you're going to have to contact their sales organization. All right, so a few other things you need to consider as you're trying to narrow down your options here. First of all, Certinia used to be called Financial Force, and a lot of people still refer to it as Financial Force. But it actually offers not just a project management or PSA capabilities, it has a full suite of back office functions like accounts payable and accounting, and I think it's close to like 15 different modules. Invoicing, I mentioned, as a separate module. So if you're looking for a complete back office solution, you should look at Certinia very closely and just make sure that the gaps that I identify in the project management module are acceptable to you. Then Cantata, the overall winner. Unfortunately, I could not get a free trial of Cantata installed. They don't offer that. So in my review of Cantata, I was reviewing that based on their documentation, their demos, etc. And they have two products. They have Cantata SX, which is a native Salesforce app, and then they have Cantata OX, which is actually separate from Salesforce but integrates with Salesforce. These are completely two different apps. It was very difficult for me to differentiate exactly what Cantata SX did versus Cantata OX. So while it was the overall winner, and it should definitely be one that you consider when you do your own review, and hopefully you get your hands on a trial from Cantata Salesforce, you need to make sure and double check some of my gaps and fits. Make sure that Cantata SX actually performs those functions. And then finally, mission control. I mentioned this earlier. Mission control only does planning at the task level. And I tell you what, as an experienced project manager at doing IT projects and consulting projects, it's very rare that you need to plan at the task level. And it makes it way more complex. Usually you're doing, developer is going to be assigned 50% from January through March is the level of planning you're doing and tracking even. So it just makes the complexity of estimating and planning so much greater to only be able to do it at the individual task level. All right, so here I'm going to talk about how did I actually evaluate the software. You can skip over this section if you'd like. But basically I do a fit gap analysis. So I've reviewed dozens and dozens of project management tools, plus my 30 years of experience as a project manager. And I have a spreadsheet that lists over 200 project management requirements, pieces of functionality. And what I do for each one of the tools is I go down each one of that list of each one of those requirements, and I mark it one of three scores. Yes, as is, it fills the functionality out of the box. Yes, it can do it, but with some configuration. And no, it cannot do it or requires customization. And then I give everywhere I said it can do it out of the box, it gets 4 points. Wherever it requires some configuration, it gets 2 points. And if it can't do it or requires customization, it gets 0 points. And then the other thing is I've weighted all 200 of the requirements evenly. In most cases, what I do with my clients is I'd go with my clients and I'd weight each of the requirements based on their priorities. So you can actually purchase the fit gap analysis spreadsheets that I've done as a starting point. You can change the weights, and then actually some of the scores and rankings will come out differently based on your preferences, your priorities for each one of these requirements. So this video is a summary of the detailed reviews I've done of all these packages and apps. If you want to get into the details, go to my website, springmanconsulting.com. You'll find within my blog a detailed individual review of each of these 4 apps and the other apps that didn't make the cut. And then you can also even purchase the fit gap analysis spreadsheets that I used for each one of these reviews. It's a nominal price, but that can be your starter point for doing your overall evaluation and selection. And then if you like this video, please subscribe and or like. All that does is it helps motivate me to make more of these videos if you find them useful. All right, have a great day.